Hello. Hey, before we start reading the Bible, one of the things I wanted to talk about was why I believe the Bible to be true. Why are we going to spend a year reading if you think it's a bunch of malarkey? And I want to tell you why I honestly believe it to be absolutely true. And to whether if you're a non-believer, um, at least give it a chance. And if you are a believer, how hopefully it can help you strengthen some of the things I learned. There's always so much that God teaches you through there, but these kind of things that I've learned. But why would I do it if I don't believe it's real? And I absolutely believe it's real. And in my heart, the Holy Spirit led me to the Lord. I absolutely positively know that through the seeds and everything that happened in my life. But um, I'm not being a Christian meat doesn't mean you're dumb, So you got to look at things and say, it's just can this be true? My logically, can my brain think it does I think it's true? Absolutely. So you ask yourself when you read something, and you're being told something, you ask yourself, is it reasonable? Is it logically consistent? Am I being lied to? You know, um, and I don't believe the Bible to be any of those things. I'll tell you why. Reasonably, when we read the Bible, the first three chapters is about God's perfect creation, and the whole rest of the book is about how we messed up and how we cannot live up to God's perfect justice and perfect will and be holy. Holy meaning being set apart. Um, so from the time we sinned on, God had a plan to save us. Some people call it the scarlet thread, but it's a blood covenant that God had to make. Basically, in a nutshell, the Bible talks about how, right, this is how you live, and you want to be, you want to do the things so you can earn your way to me. This is what you need to do. And, and we see that whole old covenant, giving us a chance to do the things that we're supposed to do, and nobody could do it. Absolutely no one. So it taught us that we can't. And God knew we couldn't. So then he said, okay, you can't. I think you figured it out. You can't. So I have to do it for you. And that's when he stepped out of heaven and Jesus came down and um, lived a perfect life, showing that God can do it. And that and that he lived that perfect life, showing that he could do it, none of us could, and that he gave up his life as a sacrifice and took on the sins that we deserved and gave us that free gift. In the whole the Old Testament teaches that what the new what is it? The New Testament is it helps explain the Old Testament, and the Old Testament was a picture of what was going to happen in the New Testament. So, um, but those things were all consistent, and they all and you could understand them all. And then when you look at the Bible and you just examine it, here it is, 66 books, and um, it's not just one book, it's 66 different books written by about 35 different authors through the Holy Spirit over about 1,500-year period. Yet that consistency stayed through all that. That has to be God. Um, I think that makes it worth considering right there. But let's look at historical evidence. Historically, there was over 300 prophecies written about Jesus. And when God stepped out of heaven and came down to earth, he said, "Hey, I'm that guy," and he fulfilled them all. That's mathematically impossible. And then I've heard the story. I've heard people say, "Well, they changed the Bible so that it fit." But so there's a thing called the Septuagint. And the Septuagint was the Hebrew's Old Testament, and it was translated into Greek in Alexandria, Egypt, 250 years before Christ came. So that's not true. It can't be true. So he fulfilled all those things. So scientifically, makes total sense. Eyewitness accounts. All right. Now let's talk legally. We have eyewitness accounts. Jesus did miraculous things, and some people believed. And so while he was here and he fulfilled those prophecies, he also said, I'm going to die, but I'm going to rise again. Mhm. So what happened? He lived a perfect life, and they crucified him and he died. and all of his disciples ran. Everybody was fearful. Um, what I love about the Bible, it shows the truth about people, and everybody ran, everybody's scared. But all those people who ran, those disciples, those 12 disciples, all of them were martyred for the faith. They all died for the faith. How do you run in fear and then come back and be willing to die for the faith? I've heard people say, well, it was a get rich thing. Well, the Jews, there was a sect of Judaism, and the Jews basically kicked them out. They said they lost their culture when they became believers in Jesus. Um, so they didn't get rich. The Romans hated them. They crucified them. They tortured them. They used them for sport. Who does that if you don't believe? Um, the reason they did it is they said, "Well, I saw him die, but then I saw him rose again from the grave." They would not have done that unless they absolutely believed it. And there's also over 500 witnesses besides the apostles who saw the risen Lord. So from a legal standpoint, I mean, and from eyewitness account, absolutely, positively has to be real. All right. And then if you just look at, experimentation, if you look at it from a scientific, looking about experimenting, does Christianity change the world? Absolutely. I mean, it changed the entire Western civilization. Does it change people? Absolutely. I attest it changed people. The person I used to be is not the person I am today. And I am the person I am today because of what Jesus did for me and through the Holy Spirit. Not perfect, not even close, but I'm different. I know if I just lived by my flesh, the kind of person I would be, and it would be a horrible, horrible person. Um, so in conclusion, these are the things that I really believe that make the Bible true. Um, and as we go through, I hope to show you that through this next year as we read together.